Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Podcast. I'm Billy Ambody. We've got a breaking news edition for you guys, and we'll get to the news of a new commitment for LSU in just a moment. But first, got to remind you guys to head to thebengaltiger.com, $1 for your first week, and 50% off your first year will get you on board through the end of next football season, pretty much. So do that now, chat about the new commitment. And of course, we are presented by our friends at StatusJet. StatusJet.com. Reach out to them and start planning some holiday travel. You've got Thanksgiving coming up. You've got the Christmas vacation coming up and New Year's. They can get you to wherever you want to go in style and also with a level of luxury you'd expect from a private jet charter company. Use Bengal Tiger. When you mention Bengal Tiger, you'll get a discount on a round trip flight with StatusJet today. So appreciate them for supporting the Bengal Tiger and Tiger fans as they try to make it around maybe an easier way to get to Gainesville, Florida, if you do want to go after last week. But let me tell you, LSU is doing well on the recruiting trail right now, which if you're looking for answers after LSU Alabama last weekend, the thing I can say is, having watched the game, rewatched it now, LSU needs to continue to recruit at the level they are. And I know I'm stating the obvious. I know they need to continue to assemble top 5 recruiting classes. But I think this roster has been such a firefighting fest for Brian Kelly and his staff. And now they have a staff that I think will ultimately get the job done in returning LSU to Atlanta at some point in the future. And obviously, it starts with Bryce Underwood. And we'll get to him in just a moment. But when you look at how crazy of a rebuild, like year one took those transfers, that pretty much all hit. Year two, they missed on a lot of those transfers. The defensive side of the ball was a mess. They have the right staff in here, especially from a recruiting acumen, to get this right, in my opinion, at least. So there's a lot of things that were inexcusable Saturday night in Death Valley. And when you get beat like that, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. But they do have talent coming in. And I do believe that a lot of the things that we saw LSU face against Alabama were talent deficiencies. You know, I don't think they're good enough at wide receiver. I don't think Garrett Nussmeier is taking care of the ball enough. We know he's got talent, but he's not doing that in his last 6 quarters in particular at a very high level. So this isn't a team podcast, but there are things to clean up that are fixable, but they do have to continue to recruit high quality players. And they did just that, getting a new commitment in the class of 2026 this time. And we go to Bossier City, where Kenny Darby, the 2026 wide receiver who earned an LSU offer this past week, getting a chance to pick up that offer while on campus right before the Alabama game. Well, he had been committed to Mississippi State. He reopened things. Since then, he had added Florida State, Miami, Tennessee offers. LSU entered the mix Saturday night, and it was only a matter of time before he committed. He's a top 50 prospect at the wide receiver position in the country, top 10 prospect in Louisiana. He's actually leading the state in receiving yards right now. So a very strong production wide receiver up there at Airline High that committed to LSU on Tuesday, just announcing his commitment, telling Chad Simmons, Hayes Fawcett, our whole crew, that he decided to commit to the in-state program. And he said, it was really just one of those dream come trues for him to get that offer. But, he loved the stadium, the environment, the energy was crazy, even with the lopsided loss, of course. But when you look at what LSU was able to do here, just getting a little bit back on the right side of things, on momentum, maybe away from the field to kind of settle things down, that's always important to do. And I think for them to get a commitment, it's, shows that the sun will come up and things will continue on the right path, which they are when it comes to the 2026 recruiting class. And that's something for LSU fans to continue to hang on to. So Kenny Darby does make his commitment to the Tigers and is now a part of a 2026 class. Is off to a really good start. So we'll be continuing to keep an eye on that group as they will be kind of that continuation of what is a really impressive recruiting class in 2025, headlined by Bryce Underwood, potential here to get Jahkeem Stewart. And we're going to touch on those guys in just a minute. But before we do, want to remind you guys that you can go to rowback.com and you can check out this hoodie. It's starting to cool down. It's got the Sailor Mike, super comfortable. It might be one of my favorite things that I own right now. Use code BengalTiger20 for 20% off your first order today at rowback.com. Again, that's first-time customers only. So create that email, get on board with them, and shop their entire line of LSU gear. And it's terrific stuff from both a breathability standpoint to I think just kind of the feel and just the comfort, especially the hoodie. I love it. It's, again, one of my favorite things that I own at this point. And so check them out. Bengal Tiger 20, 20% off your first order with rowback.com today. Let's get into more recruiting news from this weekend, because there's a lot that people want to know. Shay will follow up with another pod at some point this week, I'm sure. But just kind of some of the things that he had on the plate today. I took on the pod with Kenny Darby committing and wanted to kind of get that news out to you guys and give you guys a general sense of the recruiting takeaways from this weekend. And it was a star-studded weekend in Baton Rouge. And let's, of course, start with Bryce Underwood. And of course, you're going to see people jump on the board and freak out and say, where is Bryce going to go? Is he going to leave and go to Michigan after an offensive showing like LSU had? The reality is no, that is not going to happen. He is still very much a committed player to LSU, and he's been able to, bring his entire family down there to LSU and get them around campus again. And I think they are all in when it comes to Bryce's next step and moving down to Baton Rouge and getting settled. I mean, his family is all about the Tigers and they stay involved. And so shout out if any of them are listening right now, but they are really locked in on where LSU is going as a program and the recruits that are going to be joining Bryce in Baton Rouge. I think it was big for him to get down there with his official visit and spend time with the staff, spend time recruiting Jahkeem Stewart. But he left the visit and talking with sources, talking with Shay from what he's heard as well. And we got a chance to talk to Bryce's family too a little bit. And they really reiterated that LSU is in a great spot, not anticipating anything changing on his recruitment as much as, things were embarrassing on the offensive side of the ball against Alabama. Bryce Underwood is an all-time talent that is coming to LSU next year and is going to be able to impact this offense potentially right away. And I think that's what, maybe unfortunately for Garrett Nussmeier, unless he cleans up those interceptions, Bryce is going to get a shot very early on with LSU. And just from a pure talent perspective, ability to run, think of all the things he'll bring to the table. He's going to be dynamic in this offense when it's all said and done. So they were on campus this weekend, and Shay had some tidbits I'll throw up on the screen there. Picture of Bryce and his whole family down there. So it was a family affair for this official visit, as you would expect. LSU rolling out the entire red carpet for the official visit with the #1 player in the country, but also a key LSU commitment. And again, they reaffirmed their commitment to LSU. And I think that's a huge, huge deal for the Tigers. Again, family was all down there. And I think things are going very well with keeping Bryce Underwood in the purple and gold all the way through his college career at this point. Jahkeem Stewart wrapped up his official visit. The 5-star defensive lineman was in Baton Rouge as well. This was a game he's had circled for a long, long time now. And he did get the highlights of the visit over to Steve Wiltfong and his trainer, a friend of the program, Clyde Alexander of Edge Assassins, said that LSU was great. They had the opportunity to meet with some great people and have meaningful conversations. There's still a lot to be discussed, but LSU is showing that they are highly motivated to keep him in state. And with a guy who's been recruited as long as he has been, that is kind of what you want to hear, because defensive linemen, they are really difficult to nail down sometimes when it comes to just how expensive the NIL piece can be. And Jahkeem would be deserving of that, being a top 15 player in the country, being one of the best defensive linemen in the nation, being the top ranked player in Louisiana. And LSU is very motivated to keep a guy like that home and round out what is a tremendous defensive line class for Bo Davis. And building on that, Buddy Mathis, and there was some buzz around him with Texas and other programs working to flip him. One of my top, prospects in the class, just from how he handles his business. Very quiet, could kind of care less about all the hoopla. But Coach Bo is an amazing coach, amazing guy. When I went down there, he told me what his plan was with him and how he would develop me and how and he felt like I would be an impact player. That's what they're pushing. That's what has really stood out to him. Miami and Tennessee are hanging around, but really LSU is the one that looks like they're going to keep him, and that's not too surprising. Just the way he's handled his commitment and just his overall recruitment. So he'd be a massive piece as well out of the state of Georgia that LSU can hang on to in this class and continue to address the defensive line position at a very high level. And we know that watching this team, that's kind of what's next. I think you have the secondary, you had DJ Pickett there, you had all of those all of those prospects in town, like a Cade Phillips and an Aiden Anding, the future of the secondary rolling into Baton Rouge and being able to see it. A lot of other prospects that were there, but the defensive line is where you're going to see LSU change, I think, in the next year or two, rather quickly. Some young guys will develop. You'll get Jacoby and Guillory back. You will see a lot of depth and guys that are big and strong and ready to contribute right away. I think at a position that's relatively hard to contribute right away, you'll see them roll into town and stick with their commitment. So I mentioned Buddy Mathis. He was a key there, just kind of quieting rumors that he could flip. But Jahkeem Stewart, back to him. He'll take his official visit to USC this weekend. He's already taken an official visit to Oregon for the Ohio State game, and he'll return to Oregon for the weekend of November 23rd for an unofficial visit, and then Ohio State wraps up with the last official visit the weekend of November 30th. Shea Dixon and myself, we talked about him last week on the recruiting podcast and just how we feel like this is shaping up to be an LSU Ohio State battle. We think Oregon's a little too far. We think USC's a little too far. But as I think for him, staying in state is what this ultimately ends up being. So LSU sitting in a really good spot there for him when it comes to his recruitment. And I do want to touch on another 5-star that made a appearance, and many were kind of hoping that he would pop into town. But DeCorian Moore, the number one wide receiver in the country, did visit LSU this weekend. He did stop in. We're still hearing that this is not something that's on flip watch yet. I mean, you want to get guys like DeCorian Moore around your program, even just to see the environment of Tiger Stadium in a game like that. So important to continue to hammer that home. And I think LSU did a really nice job, obviously, just spending time with him and kind of putting their best foot forward. But at the end of the day, I don't see him, making that move to LSU at this point, just because, he is really just kind of locked in from what I hear with Oregon. I think there are some schools hanging around hoping that maybe they'll get a change out of that, but not right now from what I'm hearing. So that was the other 5-star that we'll keep an eye on. But then I want to touch on one more here. As I mentioned, the future of the cornerback position was really on campus and getting some time with Corey Raymond and the staff again. But DJ Pickett was back in town, and his dad has been really pretty open about, how they felt at home in Tiger Stadium this weekend. The atmosphere was good. The hospitality was good. And he can contribute right away. And that's the big thing with a guy like DJ Pickett, is he is going to be an instant impact player. He's got the size, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism. He's been terrific overall for LSU. I think just even when there has been a little buzz around a Miami or another program, he's locked in. And his dad said it's about my son being happy, my son being comfortable, my son getting on the field early. And we feel that spot is LSU. So things looking good there for the number one corner in the country to end up at LSU and follow through with that commitment that he made. So look, guys, a big deal there for LSU to get back on the right side of momentum with Kenny Darby committing. There's a ton of recruiting takeaways that we're going to drop at thebengaltiger.com. Lots more to come, just sifting through other players that, LSU could very well make a movement with. Of course, Matthew Bruni has you guys covered on a few five-star prospects, or a five-star prospect on the men's basketball side. Of course, the high-profile women's basketball recruiting prospects that were in town as well. Julie Bodwin, Jarrett Roser, Tyler Harden, everybody on the Bengal Tiger staff going to continue to chase down the real reality of this recruiting weekend and how LSU is still in good position for a top 5 class. The bottom is not going to fall out on this recruiting class. I mean, there are some guys that are being recruited by other programs like Mike Tyler, the tight end who's from South Carolina. Jaden Breaker has said he's solid. He's locked in with LSU. So we'll continue to see if anything matriculates there. But wanted to get you guys a relatively quick podcast on the Kenny Darby news and some key takeaways from the 5 stars that were on campus for LSU Alabama. So again, Shay will have more on the Bengal Tiger podcast later this week, but wanted to share with you guys the big news of Tuesday, and that's that Kenny Darby committed to LSU. So for the entire Bengal Tiger crew, I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Podcast. Catch you guys next time.